Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are live on Monday, October 3rd, 2nd, with the Talk Sports Show, fantasy football advice, and the top Alec Pecano's top 25 college football ranking show. Let's get started here. My fantasy football performance of the weekend from Sunday is Justin Fields. He had 4 touchdowns, threw for 335 yards with 1 interception and a fumble. I saw some positives from Fields this weekend. Hey, brother. I saw some positives from Fields this weekend. That leads me to believe he can be a top 15 quarterback going forward if his offensive coordinator decides to tailor the offense more around him instead of deciding he doesn't want to. Yes, I know that's your QB. Waiver wire now. Here are my waiver wire. Hold up. I had a little. Waiver wire. Here is my waiver wire. I'm giving you 5 guys from the waiver wire that are under 80% rostered. And let's get started. Number 1 is the most obvious one. I have talked about him the last 2 weeks. Make it 3 now. Josh Dobbs. Dobbs is not on the waiver wire, but you may see him in my top 20 QB rankings this week. Back to the waiver wire though. CJ Stroud. I've talked about him the last 3 weeks now in the waiver wire. I think people are listening because when I first talked about him, he was under 10% rostered. Last week when I talked about him, he was a little bit over 10% rostered. Now he's 32% rostered. Let's get him to over 80% rostered. Please. If you need a quarterback and Stroud is available in your league, he is the first guy I would put a waiver claim in on. And if you don't follow me on Twitter, I recommend you give me a follow on Twitter. And same thing with Patreon, because that is where I put my waiver wire rankings before I go live. And Stroud, like I said, he's 30.7%, 32% rostered. And I put 5 to 10% of my fab down on Stroud. His last 3 games, he's had 6 touchdowns. If that doesn't tell you that Stroud's for real, I don't know what does. The next waiver wire guy I'm going to talk about is tight end Jake Ferguson from the Dallas Cowboys. He is 24.5% rostered. If you need a tight end because you lost Freiermuth or you took a dart throw on, let's just say, Donald Parham, I would recommend picking up Jake Ferguson. It is Jake Ferguson season. I know you're going to hear that on a lot of different channels, but I'm on board the Jake Ferguson hype train. Pick him up. The next guy on the waiver wire is Hank Dell from the Houston Texans. 72.4% roster. He's almost at that threshold of being 80% roster. Come on. Let's get him over 80% rostered. He is one of CJ Stroud's favorite targets. And Tank Dell, I would use probably, if you're desperate at wide receiver, I would use 10 to 15% of my fab on him. Ferguson, I'm going to say use 10% of your fab on him. My next guy I'm going to talk about is Tajay Spears from the Tennessee Titans. Before I get started on him, I would say put 5% of your fab on Tajay Spears. If you need, he is not a guy you want to start, but if you have Derrick Henry or somebody in your league has Derrick Henry and they don't know that Tajay Spears is still on the waiver wire, put in a waiver claim for him, a waiver bid, when your waivers open on Tuesday. And this last waiver wire guy are two guys from the Broncos. Samaje Perine, who is 56.8% rostered, and Jaleel McLaughlin, who is 0.5% rostered. I would pick, if Perine's available in your league, he's the one I would go for. And this is only if Javonte Williams misses time. If he doesn't, don't touch Jaleel McLaughlin unless you want to pick him up and stash him for later in the season. But if Perine is available in your league, I would go and pick up Samaje Perine. Now, here are some guys to stash after week 4 of fantasy football. Number 1 is Packers wide receiver Jayden Reed, 22.4% roster. If you have a bench spot, put a waiver claim in on Jayden Reed. He was one of my sleepers last week. If you didn't see my rankings, like I said, they're on my Patreon. $4 a month, and you get the waiver wire rankings. You get quarterback, wide receiver, running back, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end rankings every week going forward, and you won't regret it because it'll help you make lineup decisions a lot easier. And after I'm done with this portion of the show, I will pull up my rankings from Patreon and show you guys the guys I was wrong on and the guys I was too high on. But back to this. So Jayden Reed, like I was saying, I would stash him on your bench if you have an open bench spot. The next guy I would stash on my bench for later in the season is Josh Dowd's rookie wide receiver from the Colts. 12.8% roster. And if you need to know how much fab to put on him, I would say if you're desperate, put 10 to 15% of your fab. If you're not, I would put maybe 5% of your fab on him. And the last guy to stash for fantasy football after week 4 is Joshua Palmer, or as I call him, Josh Palmer, from the Chargers, 47% rostered. And if you want to know how much fab to put on him, between 10 and 15% of your fab. But if you're not desperate, do 5%. Now I've got some interesting guys for you. some long-term stashes that I think could pay off later in the season. My first one, Aiden O'Connell of the Raiders. He made his NFL debut this week on Sunday, and he threw for over 100 yards. And I think he's somebody that you probably should stash on the end of your bench. Or if you play in a dynasty league, pick him up and put him in your taxi squad. Because I think he could be someone that helps you down the line. My number 2 stashes of the week after week 4 are 2 wide receivers from the Buccaneers. They're going on their bye week. That is Devin Tompkins and Trey Palmer. Devin Tompkins has outsnapped Trey Palmer to start the season, but I think both will have a role in this Buccaneers offense. Number 3 is Quentin Johnston of the Chargers. I think you should stash him because he could be a LW, a league winner, if you stash him. And this one, I picked up Rico Dowdle last week at the end of the week just to put on the end of my bench, and now he's hurt. So if you did the same thing I did, I would recommend stashing Cowboys rookie running back Deuce Vaughn on the end of your bench to see what happens. Pollard is the number 1 running back there, but they do mix in some of their backups. And now, like I said, I will be showing you the Patreon and my rankings from last week. Patreon. And there's the waiver wire rankings. But let's get to my rankings from last week, who I was high on, who I think I was too high on. Okay. I'm going to take, the first L I'm going to take is Michael Pittman. I should not have had him inside my top 15. He did not play good. He did not do good last week. Another guy, I'm going to take the L on from last week in my rankings, putting him a little higher than I thought he was going to be, was Calvin Ridley at 11. I thought Calvin Ridley was going to have a good game. I thought Calvin Ridley was going to have a good game. That is why Calvin Ridley was at number 11 in my top 15 wide receiver rankings last week. I will take the L on that. Who else can I take? Okay, I'm going to take a W on putting Justin Jefferson number 1, which is obvious, because Justin Jefferson had a good week. And I was right on putting him number 1. Amon-Ra had a decent week too, so I don't feel bad for putting him inside the top 5. Jamar Chase, I should have put him lower because he did not have a good week. Keenan Allen is right where he should have been at 5. Same with Devontae. Stephon Diggs should have been higher. I should have put Diggs inside the top 3. A.J. Brown had a real good week, so I take a W on that. Jaden Reed was one of my sleepers. He had a decent game. I will take a big fat L on Rondell Moore. And there's a guy on that same team on the Cardinals I didn't put on the waiver wire, but if you need wide receiver help, I would go out and put a waiver claim in for Michael Wilson, rookie wide receiver, 3rd round pick out of Stanford. Now, back to this. And let's see. Running back rankings. Here are my running back rankings from last week, where so my running back rankings from last week. I was wrong on Aaron Jones. He should not have been as high as he was. There we go. I was wrong on Aaron Jones. Bijan, I thought I did a good job of Bijan. Jerome Ford got outplayed by Pierre Strong, which I should have had Jerome Ford a lot lower. Kenneth Walker, we don't know yet because they play tonight. Kyron Williams, I wasn't wrong on. He actually had a really good game, so he was fine where he was. James Conner did good. James Cook is him. Javonte, I should have had lower. Ramondre, Josh Jacobs, I should have had him inside my top 10, but I didn't. I don't know why. Derrick Henry, he's losing touches, but I think he's fine right where he was. Joe Mixon I should have had him lower. But again, why wouldn't I? And now the last one. Let's see. My QB rankings from last week. I had, let's see here. So, Watson didn't play, so that, and I thought he was going to play against, I thought Watson was going to play, but he didn't. Mahomes, I could have moved him up, could have moved him down. I think he did fine for where he was. Josh Allen had a good game, so he at number 4, he's fine where he is. Justin Fields, I'll take a massive W on. I had him at 11. He outperformed his ranking where I had him. Herbert, disappointed. Baker, I told you he was going to be inside the top 14, and he was. What a showing from Baker Mayfield. And the last one I'll take an L on is Jordan Love. I should have had Jordan Love lower in my rankings. And you will see my new rankings probably on Patreon later tonight after Monday Night Football. Now, to the top 25. Here are my top 25 rankings after week 5. At number 25, I have Kentucky. They are undefeated and they embarrassed Florida. At number 24, a team I was very, very low on in the offseason before the college football season started, West Virginia. I was wrong. They're 3-1. And they've only lost one game and nobody's talking about it. I didn't think they were going to be in my top 25, but then I saw they won and I'm like, okay, they're in my top 25. At number 23 is Duke. And they did get punished for losing to Notre Dame. No, I do not. I do not, but thank you for asking. Anyway, as I was saying, Duke did get punished for losing to Notre Dame, even though it was only by 6. At number 22, a new team in my top 25, James Madison. The Dukes are undefeated, and they've been catching my eye the last couple weeks. At number 21 is Maryland. Maryland at number 21. 2 reasons they're here. 1, they're undefeated. And 2, Talia Tagovailoa, in my opinion, is better than Tua. I know I'm going to get criticized for that. At number 20, I have Washington State. Washington State's at number 20 because they had a bye week last week, so I couldn't move them up, couldn't move them down, but they're undefeated. Missouri's at number 19. There's another undefeated team, and their quarterback, Brady Cook, is starting to grow on me. I like Brady Cook a lot. At number 18 is Ole Miss. And Ole Miss is here because they beat LSU and knocked LSU out of my rankings. You will see them in the teams that dropped out later on. At number 17, South Florida. South Florida's here because their coach, Alex Golesh, has got them playing hard, tough, gritty-nosed football. I think they're going to have a special season in the American. At number 16 is North Carolina. They were another team that had a bye week last week, so they couldn't move up or down. At number 15 is Florida State. And I know what people are going to say. Why is Florida State 15? They need to prove to me that they can win and win convincingly doing it. At number 14 is Utah. Utah is at number 14 because they lost last week to Oregon State in an upset. And we don't know when their quarterback, Cam Rising, will be back. And I do these rankings based on how the teams play every week. So it changes from week to week. At number 13 is Miami of Ohio. They were at number 21 last week. They moved up a few spots to 13 because they've been playing very, very well this year. And I was high on them in the preseason. I thought they were going to have a special year with Brett Gabbert at quarterback. I think I'm right. I think I'm on to something. At number 12 is Oregon State. Welcome back to my rankings, Oregon State. You weren't in them last week, but you upset Utah, and I put you ahead of Utah in my rankings this week because I see massive improvements. A surprise team at number 11, undefeated Air Force. Yes, this is probably the last team you expected to see in my rankings. And they've been playing really good so far this year. At number 10 is Oregon. I've been impressed with Oregon. to the point where at some point they're probably going to be in front of my team that's at number 9. And at number 9, I've got Georgia. Yes, folks, I know what you're going to say about Georgia. Why are they at number 9? Why aren't they in the top 4? One reason, vulnerability. They are vulnerable, very vulnerable. They're going to lose again. They almost lost to Auburn this week. What does that say about Georgia? They are vulnerable. They're going to lose. At number 8, I've got Tennessee. In Tennessee, they're starting to grow on me. They've played better over the last couple of weeks, and they could find themselves in the top 6 in the next batch of rankings when it comes out next week on Sunday. At number 7, I've got another team that's been really good this year, Washington. I like Washington a lot. At number 6, I've got Notre Dame. They bounced back very good from the Ohio State loss, and I think they can still get an outside shot at making the playoff. At number 5, I moved it. They were at number 4 last week. There's a team that jumped them that was at number 5 last week that you will see at number 4 in a minute. But let me explain why USC is here. It is not their offense. Caleb Williams is the real deal. I see why people are saying he will be the number 1 QB off the board in the draft next year. It is the reason why USC is number 5 and not 4 or 3, 2 or 1 is their defense. Their defense is going to hold them back. They can't stop anyone on defense. And you can attribute that to their defensive coordinator, Alex Grinch. At number 4, I've got Penn State. Penn State is the real deal. We need to start taking them serious. More serious than we already have. They could eventually jump teams in my top 3 if they keep playing really well. Speaking of that top 3, at number 3, I've got Michigan. And I've already been getting some feedback. Why is Ohio State in front of Michigan? Why is it Michigan number 1? One reason, non-conference schedule. Y'all did not play Michigan. Y'all did not play anyone good out of conference. If you did, that would be a different situation. At number 2, I've got Texas. And there's a chance next week Texas could be number 1 in my rankings. I love Texas. If they're another team that's growing on me, at the beginning of the year, I'm like, yeah, they are actually for real, or is this just another smoke screen? They're going to have a disappointing year. And at number 1, they were on bye last week, so I couldn't move them up, I couldn't move them down in the rankings. They're number 1, Ohio State. Big game this week against Maryland. This will determine where they stand in my rankings going forward for the rest of the season. The teams that just missed out on my rankings this week, UCF and Fresno State. And the teams that fell out of my rankings, there was 4 of them. LSU, Syracuse, and Louisville, and Bama. And the reason Bama fell out of my ranking is because I don't trust them. And you may see them on my show tomorrow night at 9:40 for upset picks. You may see them on that show. You never know. And in Syracuse, the reason they fell out is because they laid an egg against Clemson. They were supposed to beat Clemson, and they lost. And now I'm going to preview the UAB USF game. USF for the first time this year, for the second time this year, they are favored by 3 points against UAB, which they should be favored. UAB is not a very good team. I'm disappointed that they're this bad. And I think USF should beat the brakes off them. And the last game I'm going to preview is Bowling Green and Miami of Ohio. Like I was telling you in the rankings, keep your eyes peeled on this game for Miami of Ohio senior quarterback Brett Gabbert. The kid is fun to watch. And ladies and gentlemen, before I sign off, again, please go follow. Please go give me a subscribe on Patreon. It's only $4 a month. That is where you get the waiver wire rankings, top 20 wide receiver, running back, quarterback, tight end rankings every week. And you also get rankings for fantasy baseball when that starts, if you do play fantasy baseball. And there is 2 community tab posts up that I will go to my YouTube right now. And I will share my screen in a second, ladies and gentlemen. Hold up, ladies and gentlemen. We are having... I'm still here. Share screen. YouTube. There is 2 community tab posts up. Community. And they are right here. The first one is, would y'all purchase a membership if I lowered the membership prices? Either select yes or no and leave a comment down below on that. And the second one is, would y'all like me to show my top 20 QB, wide receiver, running back, tight end rankings on the show going forward? Again, you either select yes or no and leave a comment in the comment down below. And that will wrap up tonight's show. Thank you. Have a great night. I will see y'all tomorrow for 2 episodes, 11 o'clock in the morning and 9:40 p.m. Thank you. Have a great rest of your night. Peace.